Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm out on another walk. I'm returning close to somewhere where I've been before. I'm in West Sussex and I'm near Truleigh Hill, but I'm actually further east towards Edburton Hill. I'm on the search for a castle. I'm right at the foot of the South Downs on the north sort of face, and as you can see that's going east towards, well, Brighton I suppose, and then Eastbourne and what have you, and that's the weald in front of me heading northwards, and you can probably see that there's been a sharp frost, so it's pretty chilly this morning, but my main aim is to get up here, and to do that I've got to go a sort of circuitous route up this path. The great thing about coming out when it's frosty is that the mud is rock hard, and so those wet puddles that we've had recently are not quite so slippery and not quite so boggy, more importantly. So I'm hoping my feet doesn't get too wet. So this walk is going to take me in a sort of windy way up to the top of these downs, where the South Downs Way crosses east-west as ever. The South Downs Way itself, although I think opened in 1963, I'm not quite sure. It is, of course, a much older track that used to go across the downs, because going across the downs was very much in Sussex and Hampshire one of the easiest ways of getting about. As ever, there is a gate to go through, providing land access. So here we go, a nice sign up here saying the Fulking Escarpment, with a little bit of National Trust information. It's a little bit of a clay path here this morning as I go up, but the birds are singing, so that's good. There are two things I'm hoping to see on this trip. At the top is Edburton Castle, a Norman castle, although there's no building as such there. It's just the motte and bailey, or at least some earthworks of the motte and bailey. The second thing I'm looking for is the remains of a lime kiln. Now I should see that first, in fact. I should see the lime kiln first, because it is, I've been assured by Martin Snow that it is somewhere on this track upwards. I found the lime kiln, or at least the restored version of it, tucked away on my right as I traversed the path up the hill. This restoration demonstrates the light industry across the downs, turning chalk into lime, a product for raising the pH in soil with high acidity, also used in water treatment and as an agent in cement and mortar. One of the great things about the South Downs is not only is it pretty vast, about 100-mile stretch east and west, it's just because there's so much of it, there's just these terrific and fabulous views that you get all the time, and as you come different times of the year, of course they're all slightly different. In the winter, at the end of the autumn like now, the sort of bluey haze that you get is fascinating. You see the wood smoke of cottages. The leaves have lost their, the trees rather have lost their leaves. It's all rather magical, and the air is fresh and lovely. Let's carry on up this rather steep slope. Living in the edge of the downs here on the north side, of course you are out of the sun. The sun is arcing round from the west to east, of course, and so some of these larger manors that were built here in the winter, they were probably pretty much empty. If people would go and move somewhere else, because it would have been absolutely freezing and very difficult to maintain warmth in some of these houses, particularly right down at the edge here. This area is crisscrossed by large power cables that come across. They do look a little bit like Wells's War of the Worlds tripods. In order to get to the castle itself, I've had to come off the path, and I've got to come and follow the sort of the north face of the downs around this fence, and make my way along a little, and then I should in theory come to it. At least that's the plan. How easy it is to actually get to, I don't know, because I've not been here before. But once again, the views are pretty amazing. Now, I know that the castle itself, or the position of the castle I should say, was on the north side of this and not quite on the summit, which is why I'm going up this area here. To my left is the South Downs Way now, which crosses. That's a little, I don't know, it's about a couple of 100 yards to the south of the position of the castle. So you can't get to it from there. You have to sort of wind around this little perimeter field. And I believe where, I may be out of luck. I can see fences. This is one of the problems with some of our heritage. It's on private land, or it's fenced off, or it's just in inaccessible places, and with the best will in the world, you can't always get to them. Somebody asked me about Sedgwick Castle, which is near Horsham, or the remains of. Well, that's on a private estate, and I looked at permissible footpaths and you can't at all get to it. So sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not, but we'll persevere. I can tell you that in this wind, on this end of November day, well, end of November the month and beginning of the day, it's bloody cold. I should have brought my bobble hat. Well, as luck would have it, there is a stile, or at least a way through the fence, and I've now arrived at Edburton Castle. It seems to be fenced off a little bit, but it does seem to be accessible, which is fantastic. I'll make my way over this way. So you're not going to see a castle, of course. It's just the earthworks of the castle, which are here with this ditch going around it. But as you can see, it is more on the summit than I actually realised and appreciated. You can see the mound, the Motte and Bailey Castle as it was. So what's it about? Well, it's a bit of a mystery castle in actual fact, because I'm just climbing up the motte now. This area here is not a very big castle. It would have been a timber framed castle and built probably in October, November, this sort of time, 1066, just after the Battle of Hastings. And this area here would have had a timber framed tower, and then the various ditches that go round and which sort of circumnavigates the whole thing is really the Bailey area down to the north. I'll have a look at that. But it's thought that it was more of an outpost. So after the Battle of Hastings, the Normans were keen to take the advantage. They got rid of King Harold. They were on the offensive, of course, and they wanted to stamp their authority as quickly as possible. And the Saxons had divided up part of the country into rapes, Well, the Normans embraced that, extending these rapes and putting various castles and areas of administration in these great swathes of land. Well, up here it would have been a signal, really, because as you can see, if I stand on the top, you can see that the view is huge, and anybody down there in the weald would have seen this castle. It was on the route that the Normans were taking as they made their way into England and towards Wessex, to get the powerhouse over at Winchester. So you can see that this would have been a strategic place to have started one of their first strongholds. And then in time it was probably more of a residence and a centre of administration, or not so much a centre but a place of administration. There has been a lot of speculation about what a strange place to put one on the top of the downs when there's no water. Well, actually, of course, there is water, because there are springs that come out of the downs, natural spring water. Okay, you've got to bring them up, but if you're the lord or you're in charge of the garrison, you have minions to do that. So I don't think that would have been too much of a problem. There is some conjecture that the castle also acted as a sort of toll, if you like, because it stood between the two rapes, the rape of Bramber on that side and then the rape of Lewis. You had Bramber Castle in charge of the west of this part of Sussex, and then on the east you had Lewis Castle as the administrative centre. But because there would have been traffic going on what is now effectively the South Downs Way, this old drove road that was coming across the country, this conjecture is that possibly it was a way of collecting extra money from passers-by, but also, of course, these passers-by, that was communication back then. If you're travelling from Winchester to, I don't know, Eastbourne, although Eastbourne, probably being a seaside resort, was probably no more than a fishing village, but if you're travelling in that direction, of course, gossip, news, all that sort of stuff travels with the itinerant traveller and the merchant. And so passing through here, you would have picked up news, you would have heard more about the Norman invasion. It would have effectively have been your Twitter account going through something like this. In the early 19th century, this strange earthwork was confused by the barrow diggers, the antiquarians, as an ancient burial mound. Now that's not surprising, because there are tumulus all around here, or is that tumuli? Anyway, there's plenty of burial mounds from the Saxons and possibly before the Neolithic period, and so there would have been, well, and there was in the 19th century, these effectively treasure hunters, the barrow diggers, and they came here. There's this indentation, I don't know if you can see it here, which at first mystified historians because they weren't quite sure, why did the motte have this indentation? Well, it's subsequently been discovered that the diggers, these burial diggers, had hunted around here looking for human remains, looking for the resting place of primitive man. Of course they didn't find anything, because it wasn't for that at all. Well, from the top of Edburton Castle, looking down onto the weald of Sussex, it's been another great walk, albeit slightly windy and a little cold, but well worth the discovery. I hope you've enjoyed it and that you'll join me again when I go out on one of my other walks. Until I see you again, thanks for watching and goodbye.